Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode, and I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Alex Love, and she is VP of Marketing and Communications and at RIVA Solutions. It's going to be a fascinating discussions about marketing, team strategy, small business, and she's also has a new addition to the family. So congratulations and welcome her to the show. So welcome, Alex.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know we had connected through Podmatch and kind of set the stage, talk about who you are, what you do, how you got there, how you can help the audience very briefly.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, VP of Marketing and Communications, I work for RIVA Solutions. We're an IT government contractor. So we are a small business, just graduated to mid-sized business. So we do all types of marketing, internal communications, and I run a really cool small team. And then on the side, also a podcast host. So I launched my podcast with my co-host while he had just welcomed his first daughter and I was pregnant with mine because, we had nothing else to do with our time. So figured why not also add on a podcast. So our podcast is called Mastering the Art of Failing. And we talk with really cool people all about, how you can take successes and failures in life and learn from it and pivot and putting just a better spin on sort of the concept of failure because we know life's not linear, right? We have different phases, different parts of success. And so it's been really cool to have some of those conversations.
Yeah, I love that. And so, kind of starting it off, and we'll talk about talking about, from failure to mastery on your road to success, and kind of talk about lessons you learned on the road to success and navigating marketing leadership in this digital age.
Yeah. I think one of the lessons that I like to take is that, there's always a lot of distractions in marketing, and I think it can be very confusing and very overwhelming, especially for other small business owners who maybe don't have, people who can help them, or they're doing it kind of all on their own. There's always a new platform. There's always something new and cool. And a lot of people get kind of trapped in that game that they have to keep up. And I now need a TikTok profile, and I need, to be on this one, and I have to now be on X, and I have to be on all of these different platforms, and they get spread really, really thin. But at the end of the day, marketing, fundamentals are kind of what you really need to hone in on. You can be successful on any platform as long as you understand the fundamentals, which is really that you need to be speaking directly to your audience, and you need to be where your audience is. So if your audience is like 50 plus, they're not on TikTok, or maybe they're like me and they're just kind of consuming the content. They're not necessarily creating it. So just being really smart about where you're putting your time and making sure, like I said, understanding the fundamentals, those will work on any single platform that does pop up, but you do not have to chase every single thing and be on every single platform because you will drive yourself absolutely bonkers trying to keep up.
Well, that's interesting because, and I love how you brought that up, that point where like there's one camp that says, focus on one platform, be great at that one platform. And then you see what happens to TikTok, or you see what happens when their account gets hacked, or you see what happens, all these. And then there's another camp is like, yeah, you have to be on every platform, but then how are you going to be, a multi-platform strategy, a funnel? But then how are you going to find the manpower, to do that? So, is it in the middle? Like, is it like one view works in one situation and the other? Kind of talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's a gray area, right? It kind of depends. So, in my professional life, we certainly are on a couple of platforms. beyond just our focus platform, which is LinkedIn. So we do have an Instagram account. We like lightly carry a Facebook account, and we've definitely kind of cut our losses on the Twitter X situation, because that's just, imploding on its own. But I think it's good to have a couple of different platforms that you prioritize. I think that's kind of the important thing. For us, again, we spend most of our time in digital marketing spend on LinkedIn because that's where our customers are, that's where our audience is, that's where we've seen the most return for our investment. We carry an Instagram account because that is a little bit more geared towards our internal community. And we have a lot of execs and other individuals who personally like to use Instagram. So they like to be able to share news on both platforms. But we're really not expecting to see as much of a conversion and really connect with our customers on Instagram. It is more on the internal communication side of the house. So we definitely have a priority ranking in terms of the different platforms that we're engaging in. And again, LinkedIn for my, professional world is sort of the king platform, and that's where we spend our most time. So I think it's always good to explore on a couple different platforms, and especially if you like keeping up with things that are new, right? Again, I said I am definitely someone who ingests all the content on TikTok. I have never actually posted a TikTok, and I do not know that I will. But there's some really great content on there, and it's just always something that I'm keeping my eye on because, it is a very popular network. Will it stick around? I don't know. But I think being able to, when you're putting your strategy together, figure out this is our priority target because our audience is here. We're getting a lot of, traction here, and then kind of scaling from there and only taking on the amount of platforms that you truly can invest in, because nothing really looks worse than a platform that you've stood up and then it just sits there and it's crickets, right? So I think you do need to have a plan to keep all of those platforms active to a certain degree, but you do not need to treat them all similarly.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's like kind of like I like to think of it in terms of just kind of like undiscovered territory. So you have like a couple that, like you said, you focus on, and then you have kind of like some that are backups that you kind of it's like a credit card. You sometimes charge something just to keep it open. And
Right.
the other question is like there's marketing teams, and you talk about successful lean marketing teams. What do you need what is a like what does it look like? Why can't you have a VA or a social media manager? Why do you need a marketing team? Just talk about examples of strategies your teams have implemented.
Yeah, you certainly can. It kind of depends on your business and what you're going for. So outsourcing is a really good option if you don't need a dedicated team in-house or just cannot support that. If you're looking for fractional support, that's definitely a really great way to go. If you are a more established, larger business, you end up paying a lot more for consultant support than you do kind of building and grooming your own in-house team. And then you deal with not everyone understanding your brand voice and vision, individuals who are not interacting with all of your employees on the day-to-day to kind of learn all of that additional information, get those insights, and spark some new ideas. You're really just funneling that stuff out to, an agency who, has a certain understanding, of course, of your business, but not the internal knowledge that an internal team could have. So that's why, a lot of the companies that I work for, I built many small lean teams, and I'm right now there are 4 of us on the marketing team, but we do marketing, we do internal comms, and we do events and a lot of other things on top of that. So very, very heavy plate for a very small team. But again, because we're able to be inside the organization and build relationships with our project managers, with our client teams, with our business development folks, all the executives, we have a much better sense of what's going on in the organization as a whole. So we're able to market externally what we're doing, our services, but also help recruit individuals into the organization. And we're also very good at putting together that internal employee engagement approach too. Because marketing, unfortunately, is one of those things that it's like a nice to have. A lot of people don't want to engage with the marketing team, or maybe they don't have time to engage with the marketing team. So we do a lot of relationship building exactly for that, because the stronger relationships you have internally, the easier it is for you to get content, for you to then also have some cool stuff to talk about in terms of what your services are, what you're doing in the marketplace. So you don't need a ton of people to get it done. If you are able to be laser focused and have some really creative ideas, you can go pretty far. If you know how to repurpose your content, work with stakeholders to get the most and the maximum out of the content that you do have.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And you brought up this really interesting point is when your outsourcing gets more expensive than bringing an in-house team in to cut your cost. That was, that's very insightful. The kind of, moving on is, talking about, you talk about public and private sectors, and you talk about the different communication and marketing strategies between these two, the challenges, and adapting your marketing approach when switching between these sectors.
Yeah, sure. So currently in the private sector, but working towards advertising towards the government. Federal government is our main client. So that comes with its own set of challenges. There is a lot of restrictions and things you cannot do as a government contractor, and then interacting with those clients too. There's a lot of things that we're just not able to, equate to the work that we're doing, right? So I can't always go out there and say, hey, we did XYZ for this client, show it off, or even name the person, right? You see in the government agency or marketing, you see a lot of like a large federal agency, and that's to, get around sort of some of the ethics concerns that they have, since the government cannot endorse, contractors and really go out there and kind of put themselves out there. So it makes getting those like customer quotes and other things and case studies a little bit difficult on the marketing side, because we can't always necessarily point to who the client is or they're willing to let us do that. So we have to be a little bit creative sometimes with that. And at RIVA, we take a very different approach. We pull a lot of the best practices from the private sector, B2B, B2C industry, and kind of overlay them on the tactics that we're doing. So we never want to be sort of the boring government contractor, which doesn't sound fun, right? Government contracting doesn't sound fun unless you live in the DC area like I do, when everyone's a government contractor, so they get it. But we have really fun, memorable pieces that we stick in there just to show our culture, and to show that, we do really cool work. We are a fun team. But again, we serve very serious missions at the end of the day. So one of the things that we rely on is our alpaca, which is our mascot. So not something that you would typically see. A lot of government contractors are very risk averse, very sort of red, white, and blue. But we have an alpaca. His name is Alpac Shakur. So we have little mini ones that go travel around the US with our employees, go to different events. And it's kind of a calling card. So it's something that we're known for. And it's really nice to be able to walk into a room and people already kind of know who you are, where the company is from. So it's done a lot for our brand recognition to have something a little bit niche and a little bit memorable outside of the usual space. But yeah, we don't get a lot of the fun, metrics and tracking that you get on the private sector side. I can't really go through and say I can attribute that this person purchased the service because they read this blog, they clicked this ad, they did this. So we're flying a little bit more blind on our side because we can't track that data, and our sales cycle is so long. We're talking 18 to 36 months is typically how long it takes to close a government contract, and the amount of touch points that you would have as a marketer and BD team between there and could be hundreds. So there's just no way to really attribute that to say, hey, this blog post did XYZ. So we rely on sort of a mix of quantitative and qualitative data, and our business development team going out there and telling us things are doing well, meeting people at industry events, and just really sort of mixing traditional and digital marketing to make sure that we're hitting our audience and people know who we are. So much more on the brand awareness side of things than you get to be on the private sector, where you're able to do, more direct consumer marketing, more targeted marketing, sort of the traditional funnel to take people through ad to.
Interesting. Yeah, I was just curious. I have my own ideas about the government sector. But talk about so one thing is you talk about is this continuous learning and professional growth, and how do you stay current with the latest trends and developments in marketing and communications?
Yeah. So again, because I'm in the government side right now, we're a couple of years behind, so we can typically take the best practices, that maybe the private sector has kind of mastered and sort of layer on what is applicable in our space. But there's not a lot of government marketing sort of groups or advocacy groups and associations. So I spend a lot of time networking and at events that are geared more toward the private sector and with my colleagues who, work in product marketing or work in services marketing on that side of the house. Because there's a ton, like I said, there's a ton of new stuff happening on that side that we will eventually get on our side. But it's fun to be able to stay in the know with that stuff so that some of that we may be able to leverage, like AI, for instance, right? Everyone's sort of getting into that game at this point. So where are the appropriate places for us to leverage that to make sure that we're staying trendy and pulling, best practices from more faster industries than government contracting.
Yeah. And then, obviously one's journey is you've got highs and lows. And just talk about how your perspective on failure has evolved over the years, your advice to listeners who are currently facing setbacks or transition. And I'm just curious.
Yeah. So I'm definitely like a type A kind of go-getter driven kind of individual. And so taking on the concept of failure in the podcast felt really important to me because it's definitely something in my life that I tend to try to shy away from or like, kind of compartmentalize. Like it happens to everybody, but I definitely didn't want to address it in certain parts of my life, which has become harder to do the older you get and the more of these pivot points and failures you kind of have. And so when my co-host kind of approached me with the idea, and we had been former business partners together, and so he had moved out of the area. Our business was probably the most successful and the biggest failure that I will say I had in my life, right? We had these big grand plans and we had a really good run. But as when we built this business at like 24, we really had no business doing sort of the things that we were doing in the places that we were. And so we've learned a lot since then, since like the 10, 12, however long it's been since we sort of parted ways. But we had a very interesting conversation about how, had we been starting that business where we were now today, we probably would be a lot more successful. And because back then we were just, kids trying to figure it out, but we had a really good fun time. And so it felt important for us to be able to talk to different entrepreneurs and people in different agencies about sort of that inflection point in their life where you set out with this grand plan and you're like, I know I'm going to do this. I'm going to be super successful. This is my plan. And then you get there and either one, you hate it, two, it doesn't work out, something happens in your environment that's out of your control. And how people are able to take that, successfully pivot, reframe their life, and then sort of start over or sort of find a new goal or a new path. And so it's happened to me a couple times in my life, right? I'm previously divorced, remarried. At 30, I really didn't think I was down that path of like, this is not the life that I want. So, I was able to put my long-term happiness in the priority seat over sort of temporary discomfort and say, I can't imagine continuing to do this for the rest of my life. I'd really like to have a family, but this is not it, right? This is not the solution. And so being able to sort of walk away, put myself forward, and now looking back 5 years later, there's not a single thing about my life that is the same. My job's different. I live somewhere else. I'm married to someone else. I'm a mom now. But yeah, I look back, it's amazing to sort of see when you put yourself first and you're able to say, hey, I made some wrong decisions, but that doesn't make you a bad person. It's just that my perspective has changed and something else is different in my life. So it's been really cool to look back at that and have those conversations with other people who've had similar moments in their life, but be able to look back and say, life's not linear. There's ebbs and flows to everything that we do. And if anyone's out there thinking that the posts that people put on Instagram are like the real life, right? That's completely curated and filtered. That's not reality. People are not posting the worst parts of their life. They're posting the best parts of their life. So I think it's very important for people to realize that that's okay. And as long as you are able to take those lessons and move forward, you'll be fine.
Your brain needs support, and new Ollie Brainy Chews are a delightful way to take care of your cognitive health. Made with scientifically backed ingredients like Thai ginger, L-theanine, and caffeine, Brainy Chews support healthy brain function and help you find your focus, stay chill, or get energized. Be kind to your mind and get these nootropic chews at ollie.com. That's OLLY.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Whoa. Landing an account this big will totally change my landscaping business. It's gonna mean hiring more guys and more equipment and new trucks for the new guys to drive the new equipment in. I don't know if I'm ready.
You can do this, and Ford Pro FinSimple can help. Our experts are ready to make growing pains less painful for your business with flexible financing solutions that meet the needs of your business today when you need them. Get started at fordpro.com/financing.
Yeah, you remind me of the more I see Instagram and these people with picture perfect lives, the more I'm like, yeah, they're hiding something.
Right.
Could be infidelity, could be addiction, could be gambling, and then it's funny because like you see those accounts like a year later, like they'll blow up like in the first few months, and then a year later it's like nothing, and then people that are just kind of consistent, and then it's it's kind of like this but what's interesting is balancing parenthood, professional relationships, kind of talk about I know you're new mom, and then so what strategies do you plan to use to balance family time, work commitments, all of that?
Yeah, it's been humbling. It's been hard for sure. My daughter is actually like could wake up at any moment, so that's always the fun part of like certain parts of the day. So she is home with me 2 days a week, which has been challenging but a lot of fun. So she's 5 months old, and she's at a really fun period where it's like she's starting to interact with things, and she's been really, really like curious about a lot of things. So I made the decision to keep her home 2 days a week, so that I could experience a lot of that. But that comes with a lot of balance. And so I'm like crazy about my calendar at this point, and being able to like literally block out everything is on my work calendar, the gym, summer. My daughter's name is Summer, so if my calendar says summertime, that's not it being nice outside. It is me hanging out with my daughter or her being awake for that hour. But yeah, really just trying to be very strategic about how I'm orchestrating my day. And I never sort of sit down in the beginning of the day and say, okay, what am I going to accomplish? I have figured that out the day before, the week before, to say these are the things that are top priority that I have to get done today, or at least at the very much this week, within reason, right? Everything that I put on my to-do list these days is realistically not going to get done because, I have an infant and she comes first. So just being as thoughtful as I can about how I'm spending my time and being realistic too. I think that's the big thing is that, before I had kids, you have more hours in the day to like work late, work on the weekends if you have to catch up. And that's just not there anymore. And that's okay. I'm okay with it, right? I definitely want to spend time with my daughter and my husband, and it's been really cool. But I just have to be a lot more realistic about what I can accomplish and what hours I truly can put in, and working with my team to make sure that everyone is covered, everyone is good, and that we're setting realistic expectations with the stakeholders that we serve at our company, that, this is kind of the reality that we're in, and we will do our best to get it done when it gets done.
Yeah, which kind of brings me to my final question is how can people contact you, follow your social media, reach out to you, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. So I hang out on LinkedIn and Instagram a ton. So on LinkedIn it's Alex Stevens Love, and then Instagram it's _AlexLove22. Or you can catch up with me on my podcast, which is Mastering the Art of Failing.
Yeah, I love that. And for all the audience out there, thanks for a wonderful podcast, and be sure to give Alex's socials a like and follow. Reach out to her if you want coaching or to check out her products and services. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.